All eyes are on Doha, where the long-anticipated Hostages for Ceasefire Summit is underway in the Qatari capital of Doha. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the latest.
The U.S., Egyptian, and Qatari mediators are calling it a summit to emphasize the finality and potential achievement of the elusive Hostages for Ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. On the eve of the talks, Israel reportedly drew up a list of 33 hostages it insists be released in the first phase of the proposed deal between Israel and Hamas. All 33 captives meet the so-called humanitarian designation covering women, children, the elderly, the sick, and that includes female soldiers. The IDF says that 115 Israelis remain in Gazan captivity, both living and dead. It's feared that many, if not most, have been killed in the 314 days since the Hamas massacre. Mossad chief David Barnea is heading the Israeli team, and he has reportedly been given some leeway toward reaching an agreement. There are still significant points to be deliberated. Prime Minister Netanyahu is reportedly standing firm on his demand of an Israeli presence on the critical Philadelphia corridor on the Egyptian-Gaza border. Hamas has said that it will not physically attend the talks, but Qatari mediators insist that they will be represented. Visiting Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, the ambassadors from the U.S., Britain, and Germany issued a rare joint declaration saying that Israel and Hamas must reach a deal soon, warning that this might be the last opportunity to win freedom for the hostages. The White House remains confident that the talks in Doha will succeed.
We are ready. We are ready to continue these discussions. And as I've said before, and as my colleagues from NSC have said many times before, we are working 24/7 around the clock to get this done, to get this deal done.
The talks are expected to continue at least up until the weekend.
And while Israeli negotiators begin hostage talks in Doha, the nation desperately anticipates the outcome from Hostage Square. Now, with more is ILTV's Ariella Lachiani. Ariella, what can you tell us?
Hi, Sivan. So I'm here now at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, and all eyes are very much on Doha as a high-level team of Israeli negotiators has been sent to Doha for renewed ceasefire talks, which are expected to begin today. And as the days go on, time is becoming more and more precious. Hostage families are doing everything they can to put pressure on the government to bring their loved ones home. Former hostages who still have loved ones in Gaza are unable to move forward and heal as they await the return of their loved ones. And whilst the nation remains hopeful and optimistic that we reach a deal in the coming days, the harsh truth is that we reach 314 days of war and 314 days that the hostages have spent under Hamas captivity in Gaza. Closing a deal is becoming more and more difficult, and even vocal champions of a ceasefire, including President Joe Biden, has admitted that whilst he will not give up, remaining optimistic is becoming extremely tough, and fears now that in the coming days we are seeing the last chance to close a hostage deal. And even tonight, hostage families are set to hold a rally in Tel Aviv under the slogan, Last Chance.
And joining us now is Moti Cristal, former member of governmental hostage negotiation teams. Hi, Moti.
Hi, Sivan.
Thank you for joining. Moti, the U.S., Qatar, Egypt, Israel, and possibly Hamas representation, they're all convening in Doha today for a renewed round of negotiations for a hostage for ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. What are the main obstacles which remain between the two parties?
I think that the main obstacles is the non-existing political will, probably on either sides of Hamas and Israel. In the Israeli politics, it's already became a common knowledge, a common understanding that Netanyahu doesn't have a personal political interest to pursue a deal which includes ends of hostilities and end of the war, because that will start some countdown towards the end of his political career or towards election, which he doesn't want. I think that on the other side, Sinwar understand that the tremendous pressure that he was put, including the assassination of Hania and Dev. So basically he's quite alone there And instead of being manipulating his joint leadership of Hamas, he is now really became physically almost the single decision maker. And when people psychologically are put in such a position, they would like to defer decision, to postpone decision. He believes that U.S. and international pressure, as well as the threat coming from Hezbollah in Iran, will improve his bargaining position. And he might be wrong, but that's the way he perceives it. So from his personal interest, he would rather wait, as well as Netanyahu. Unfortunately, the hopes, as your reporters indicated, hopes are tremendously high. We heard the spokesperson of the White House. The fact that Americans framed it as the last chance, I would say that in our professional circles, we now say this is, like in a document that you prepare, this is the final version, and then comes the final version, and then comes the real final opportunity. Unfortunately, this is the situation as I see it.
Now, the Mossad and Shin Bet chiefs arrived at the summit on Israel's behalf, but also Netanyahu's policy advisor. Do you think that Netanyahu can make the concessions needed and get the support needed to approve a deal?
Well, I would say that professionally, as an Israeli, from both perspectives, I reject this framing, whether Netanyahu will make that concessions. A deal is always something which is reached between two sides, in this case, Netanyahu and Sinwar. A deal is always something which is better than the alternatives which both of them have. In negotiation vocabulary, you call it the zone of possible agreement and the political will. I don't know if Netanyahu has to do additional concession. I don't know if Sinwar needs to do additional concessions. Both leaders needs to decide that the continuation of the current reality is worse than what we have on the table. And knowing professionally the Israeli negotiators, I'm confident that they completed or they reached the best deal possible, which will secure Israel interest, Israel values, and now it's the political decision-making time.
And what about Hamas? They previously said they would not show up to the talks. We're now unsure of their exact involvement. Is there a point to have summits and conduct talks when one of the parties is absent?
Well, you clearly indicate one of the big faults of this process, the fact that the decision makers are not even in communication or in direct communication. Because, as you mentioned, Ophir Falk, the foreign policy advisor of Netanyahu, is there. He can definitely step aside and consult Netanyahu, while neither of the people in the room who represents the Hamas side, Qatari, the Egypt, cannot do the same with Sinwar. So that really adds, I don't want to say a disadvantage to the Israeli side, but definitely that adds a significant challenge to those who want to pursue a deal.
Certainly one of the greatest challenges. Moti Cristal, thank you very much.
Toda rabba, Sivan. Thank you.
IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi was in Gaza and visited the strategic Philadelphia access road along the border between Egypt and Gaza. Halevi told officers that the army can manage with or without a physical presence along the Egyptian-Gaza border. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
IDF Chief of Staff Halevi went to the strategic Philadelphia route to meet officers and conducted an assessment of the situation after more than 10 months of fighting. With the Doha talks set to begin and with Hamas insisting on a full IDF withdrawal, Halevi addressed the issue of the strategic Philadelphia axis, saying that the return of the hostages was paramount and the army will know how to defend Israel with or without the Axis Road.
הדבר הבא זה השבת החטופים. זו מטרת מלחמה. אנחנו עובדים עליה בנחישות רבה מאוד. ואני רוצה שתדעו שמה שאתם עושים כאן מעל האדמה, מתחת האדמה, מאוד משפיע על זה. כי חמאס צריכה לדעת שכל יום שהיא מחזיקה את החטופים שלנו, הוא יהיה יותר מר מבחינתה מהיום הקודם. ואנחנו נחמיר עד שאנחנו נצליח להחזיר את החטופים, ואחרי זה לא ניתן לחמאס גם להרים את הראש. והדבר השלישי זה פילדלפי.
Halevi said the IDF will be able to manage, with or without physical presence, on the Philadelphia axis.
אנחנו מכינים אבל אפשרויות לכל דבר שהדרג המדיני יחליט. יחליט שאנחנו נשארים על פילדלפי, נדע להישאר שם ולהישאר חזק. יחליט שאנחנו מנטרים ופושטים כל פעם שיש לנו אינדיקציה, נדע לעשות את זה. אנחנו נדע לעבוד טוב.
If pulled out of the area, said Halevi, the IDF will continue to have eyes on the Philadelphia access, seen as a key smuggling route, and troops will carry out pinpoint incursions if and when needed.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
In a deeply moving display of solidarity, thousands of Israelis gathered yesterday for the funeral of Staff Sergeant Jordan Cooper, a 26-year-old American-Israeli lone soldier who served in the IDF. Jordan immigrated to Israel in 2018 through the Garin Tzabar program for lone soldiers and served in the Nachal Infantry Brigade. Although he later returned to the United States when war broke out with Hamas after the October 7th massacre, he decided to come back and to fight. After serving over 200 days as a reservist in the IDF this year, Jordan tragically passed away from a nut allergy. In a response to a heartfelt request by his relatives, the public showed up in overwhelming numbers, filling the streets with people of all ages, all moved by the story of a young man who chose to serve Israel, a country far from his birthplace, but close to his heart. U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein is in Beirut trying to delay any potential Hezbollah retaliation for the assassination of its military commander Fouad Shukr 2 weeks ago in Beirut, so as not to lower chances of successful hostage for ceasefire talks in Doha. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein said that a hostage truce deal with Hamas would prevent the outbreak of a wider war with Israel, already braced for potential attack from both Iran for the alleged assassination of Hamas leader Haniyeh in Tehran and Hezbollah for the assassination of its commander, Fouad Shukr.
There is no more time to waste, and there's no more valid excuses from any party for any further delay. The deal would also help enable a diplomatic resolution here in Lebanon, and that would prevent an outbreak of a wider war and create the conditions for the displaced Lebanese people to return to their homes in the south and the displaced Israeli residents to return to their homes in their north.
Hochstein said there is no more time to waste, adding that the deal could help defuse the 10 months of deadly cross-border exchanges between Israel and Lebanon.
We continue to believe that a diplomatic resolution is achievable because we continue to believe that no one truly wants a full-scale war between Lebanon and Israel, especially not the Lebanese people and the Israeli people.
Even as Hochstein was holding talks in Beirut, the cross-border exchanges were ongoing. Alerts were activated in the western Galilee area. The air defense fighters successfully intercepted unmanned aircraft that crossed into Israel from Lebanon. The IDF hit Hezbollah rocket launchers primed for attack in South Lebanon's Hula. Jets also struck buildings used by Hezbollah in several other towns, and other targets were hit by IDF artillery and tank fire. At least 2 terrorists were reportedly killed in Mar Jayun, where a drone struck a vehicle in the mostly Christian town.
The IDF conducted a 12-hour raid into the villages of Tubas and Tamun in the Jordan Valley, killing 5 terrorists. 4 soldiers were wounded in the counterterrorism operation that comes days after the deadly shooting attack in the Jordan Valley earlier this week, in which 1 Israeli was murdered and another seriously wounded. During the operation, an Air Force aircraft conducted several strikes on the Tamun and Tubas, eliminating the 4 armed terrorists. It was the first time aircraft were used in the Jordan Valley in an anti-terror operation. The soldiers were wounded when their armored vehicle drove over an explosive device. Following the airstrikes, troops eliminated a senior wanted terrorist and exchanged fire with other terrorists as well. Troops located 5 M16 and Carlos-style weapons and seized additional arms and explosives that were found in the area. 3 suspects were arrested and are being held for questioning. As part of the operations, the forces arrested 3 terrorists and took them for further processing by the security forces. Reports are emerging of a significant cyber attack on Iran's banking system, potentially disrupting financial activities across the country. While details remain scarce, this could mark another chapter in the ongoing cyber warfare between Iran and its adversaries, with fingers pointing at Israel. Unconfirmed reports from Israeli Hebrew media are suggesting that Iran's banking infrastructure has been hit by a major cyber attack. The alleged attack, which has yet to be officially verified, reportedly targeted multiple banks, potentially causing widespread disruptions in financial transactions across the country. This incident comes amid a backdrop of heightened tensions in the Middle East, where cyber warfare has become an increasingly prominent tool in the geopolitical fight. If true, this attack would underscore the vulnerabilities in Iran's critical infrastructure, raising questions about the nation's cyber defenses and the broader implications for its economy. While the source or origin of the attack has not been directly identified, such incidents have been part of the ongoing shadow conflict between Iran and its rivals, including Israel, and possibly the United States. Authorities in Iran have not confirmed the reports, leaving many to speculate about the extent of the damage and the potential response from Tehran. Cybersecurity experts are closely monitoring the situation, as any significant disruption to Iran's banking system could have far-reaching consequences, not just for Iran, but possibly for the wider financial system. This attack demonstrates the growing role of cyber warfare in modern conflicts. And joining us now on this topic is Colonel in Reserves Professor Gabi Siboni of the Misgav Institute for National Security and the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. Gabi, let's talk about this alleged attack on Iran. How significant is such a cyber attack on Iran's banking system, and what types of disruptions could it cause for the country's economy?
First of all, Iran itself has substantial offensive capabilities, and they are exercising attacks on Israel for many years, and especially since the beginning of this war. And Israel as well has some substantial offensive capabilities. And apparently, I don't know if this is right, but allegedly Israel is behind this attack, and they attacked the central bank and some of the bank system in Iran. That can be done, and from what I read in the paper, it has some impact. It had some impact on Iranians.
Israel has not officially taken responsibility for this cyber attack, but given the ongoing situation and the rivalry between Israel and Iran, how likely is it that this was an Israeli attack, in your opinion?
Well, I wouldn't know. There are also other groups, let's say, assuming supporting Israel, that might launch such an attack. I don't know if an official Israeli operation was launched. I really don't know. But anyway, we can see this is an attack that has an impact on the banking system, and from what you see, somehow it is the attackers support Israel. So I don't know. But in terms of capabilities, I think that Israel has. This is a fraction of its capabilities regarding cyber attacks, and we have seen in the past that Israel, again, allegedly has attacked the port, the operation of the port of Bandar Abbas, after an attack by Iranians to our water systems. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, and we have seen such under the ground war of cyber, and this is part of it, I think.
Now, how difficult is it to execute such a cyber attack?
Well, you need to understand that to execute such an attack, it cannot be launched from now, immediately. You have to prepare it in advance, and you have to prepare what we call red buttons. So it means you have to get yourself reside on the systems, and it is very difficult to maintain this reside, to maintain your presence on those systems, because computer systems, you update them, there are changes all the time, and you have to maintain your presence and to make sure that when you want your attack to be launched, you can launch it. So I assume that whoever conducted this attack had prepared it for months and months ago.
Uh-huh.
However, I just want to mention that this is, as I mentioned, if it is Israel, I don't know, but if it is Israel, I think that this is a fraction, really a small fraction of Israel capabilities in cyberspace, offensive capability in cyberspace vis-a-vis Iran.
Now, if this cyber attack is confirmed, what might be the potential response from Iran?
Well, they don't need to respond specially. Again, they do it all the time. They continuously try to penetrate our cyber systems here in Israel, and they are doing it all the time. They don't need any more motivation. So I don't think this will erupt a new wave of something. It may be, but maybe also by some other groups, pro-Iranian groups that might try to do something. But in Israel, we have a very robust defensive system by our cyber directorate in Israel, and also the organization themselves, the IDF, and all the security organizations defend themselves quite well. And of course, you can never know, but I think we have a very robust defensive system, and we try to foil all those attacks. And just for you to understand, I would assume that in any day, hundreds of attacks are being launched on Israel, maybe more.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And as Israelis prepare for a possible Iranian attack, Tel Aviv's Museum of Art has begun storing some of its most valuable art as a precaution in the event of a targeted attack. Let's go to ILTV's Ariel Elahiani, who is at the museum with more.
Hi, Sivan. Yes, so I'm here now just standing outside the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, where members of staff here have continued to store away pieces of art due to fears of damage caused by the much anticipated Iranian attack. The staff here did begin to store away valuable pieces of art after October 7th, when Hamas began to fire several rockets towards central Israel, and left staff here, quite frankly, scrambling to figure out how they could protect these pieces. Pieces are still on display on lower levels where they are thought to be more protected. However, the more valuable pieces are stored in rows of metal grills in a so-called safe, among them pieces by Klimt and Picasso.
Thank you for that. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 23 degrees Celsius or 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly sunny skies and hot weather expected, as temperatures should climb and reach highs of 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.